Billionaire's grandma gave him 30 days to marry, so he chose the girl who just slapped him. Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories like this one. Your support truly means the world to us. And let me ask you something, where are you watching from right now? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you so much. Now let us return to our main character. The sound of the slap cut through the hotel lobby like a gunshot. Ethan Blackwood felt it before he processed it. The sting across his cheek, the sudden silence, dozens of eyes freezing mid-glance, mid-step, mid-whisper. A crystal chandelier shimmered overhead, catching the moment like a spotlight that refused to turn away. The woman standing in front of him did not apologize. She did not tremble. She did not step back. Her hand was still raised. "Do not ever touch me again," she said, her voice steady, low, and sharp enough to leave a second mark. Ethan straightened slowly. He was used to power-bending rooms. He was used to people lowering their voices when he entered, adjusting their posture, their tone, their expectations. As the youngest billionaire CEO in the city, he had learned that silence often followed his name. But this woman did not care who he was. She had mistaken him for another arrogant man who thought a smile and a suit were permission. And when he crossed a line, she responded without hesitation. The woman turned and walked away, her heels striking marble with controlled fury, leaving behind a room that could not decide whether to breathe again. Ethan touched his cheek, more surprised than angry. Then his phone vibrated. Once, twice. He glanced at the screen and felt something colder than the slap settle into his chest. "Grandmother," he answered. Ethan, the voice on the other end, said calm and unyielding. "You have 30 days. He closed his eyes. 30 days. You will marry," she continued, "or you will step down from the board, the trust, the company. Everything your grandfather built will pass to someone who understands family." Ethan said nothing. "I am not asking," she added. "I am informing you." He stood there as the lobby returned to life, conversations resuming in hushed tones, curious glances following him like ripples after a stone hit water. 30 days to find a wife. Not a girlfriend, not a companion, a wife. He had built a billion-dollar empire by controlling risk, predicting outcomes, and never letting emotion dictate strategy. Love was inefficient. Marriage was a liability. And yet, his grandmother had tied his entire future to a ring and a signature. Ethan turned slowly, scanning the room. And then he saw her again. The woman who had slapped him. She stood near the exit, one hand gripping the strap of a worn leather bag, shoulders tense, but proud, as if she expected the world to challenge her again and was ready for it. Something dangerous crossed his mind. Not attraction, not desire, desperation. She was not polished, not impressed, not afraid, and most importantly, she had no idea who he really was. Ethan adjusted his cufflinks, squared his shoulders, and took a step toward her, toward the only person in the room who had just proven she would never bow to him. 30 days. If he had to marry someone, it would not be a woman who wanted his money, his name, or his power. It would be the woman who had just slapped him in front of everyone and walked away like she had nothing to lose. And for the first time in his carefully controlled life, Ethan Blackwood realized he was about to make the most reckless decision of all. The elevator ride to the top floor was silent, except for the soft hum of ascent and the steady rhythm of Ethan Blackwood's breathing. By the time the doors opened into his private office, the sting on his cheek had faded. What had not faded was the sentence his grandmother left hanging in the air. "You have 30 days. Ethan loosened his tie and crossed the floor to the glass wall overlooking the city. 42 stories below, traffic moved in neat lines, obedient, predictable. He had designed his life the same way. Every acquisition calculated, every risk measured, every relationship optional. Marriage did not fit anywhere in that system. He had been married once before. Not legally, emotionally, and it had cost him more than money ever had. Since then, he had learned the lesson the hard way. Love distracted, attachment weakened, and the moment you gave someone leverage over your heart, you lost control. That was why his grandmother's ultimatum was so dangerous. Eleanor Blackwood was not cruel, she was strategic. She believed power without roots was fragile. She had built her influence not only on wealth but on legacy. Bloodlines. Continuity. To her, a man without a wife was a man without an anchor. Ethan picked up the framed photograph on his desk. His grandfather stood beside Eleanor, her hand resting on his arm, both of them younger, fiercer, united. The company had grown from a steel warehouse into a global empire under their partnership. That was what Eleanor wanted him to replicate. Not love. Stability? 30 days meant no time for vetting, no time for appearances, no time for sincerity. Any woman he approached now would see desperation written across his balance sheets. They would negotiate, they would perform, they would smile for the cameras and sharpen knives behind his back. He set the photo down and exhaled slowly. Then, against his will, another image surfaced. A raised hand, a steady voice, a woman who did not hesitate. "Do not ever touch me again." She had not asked who he was. She had not looked around for witnesses. She had not waited for permission. She had acted. That alone set her apart from every socialite consultant and board-approved candidate his grandmother would parade in front of him. Ethan turned away from the window and grabbed his jacket. Across town, the woman who had slapped a billionaire was already trying to forget him. Her name was Claire Morgan, and she was late. Late to her second shift. Late on rent. She pushed through the back door of a small neighborhood restaurant, tying her apron as she moved her mind, replaying the moment in the hotel lobby with unwanted clarity. The slap had felt inevitable. Necessary. Still, the adrenaline lingered, buzzing under her skin. She hated places like that hotel. Polished floors. Polite smiles. Men who mistook confidence for entitlement. She had thought he was just another one of them. Claire worked through the dinner rush, with mechanical focus, refilling glasses, memorizing orders, ignoring the ache in her feet. By the time the last customer left, the night had pressed in heavy and quiet. She sat at the counter, counting tips, doing mental math she already knew the outcome of. Not enough. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She stared at the screen, then declined the call. A second later, a text appeared. "This is Ethan Blackwood. I owe you an apology. And I need to speak with you." Claire laughed softly, shaking her head. Of course. She slipped the phone into her bag and stood unaware that the man she had slapped was already standing outside, watching the light above the restaurant flicker, knowing that for the first time in his life, the clock was not on his side. And if he was going to survive the next 30 days, he would need a woman who had nothing to gain from saying yes, and everything to lose by saying no. Claire Morgan noticed him the moment she stepped outside. The street was quiet, the kind of quiet that came after a long workday when the city finally exhaled. The neon sign above the restaurant buzzed softly, flickering like it had been debating whether to stay on or give up. Claire adjusted the strap of her bag on her shoulder and stopped short. He stood across the street, hands in his coat pockets, posture straight but not aggressive. He had changed since the hotel. No suit jacket, no polished arrogance. Just a dark coat, rolled sleeves, and a face that looked careful. She recognized him immediately. Her jaw tightened. "You have got to be kidding me," she said aloud, more to herself than to him. Ethan crossed the street slowly, making sure not to rush her. He stopped a few feet away, far enough to be non-threatening, close enough to be heard. "I am not here to argue," he said, "or to justify anything." Claire folded her arms. "Good. Because I am not interested." "I know," Ethan replied. "That is why I am here." That earned him a sharp look. He took a breath. "I crossed a line earlier. You reacted the way anyone should. I am sorry." The words were simple. Direct. No legal polish. No public relations tone. Claire studied him, searching for sarcasm, for entitlement, hiding behind good manners. She found none. Only urgency. And something else she could not immediately name. "You followed me for that?" she asked. "No," he said. "I followed you because I need to speak with you. And because you did not take my call." "I did not ask for your number," she shot back. "I know." Silence stretched between them, thick with everything unsaid. "I do not do this," Claire said finally. "Whatever this is, I am tired, I am broke, and I am not interested in being part of some rich man's apology tour." Ethan nodded once. Fair. Then he did something she did not expect. He told her the truth. "My grandmother gave me 30 days to get married," he said. "If I do not, I lose my position, my company, and everything I have built." Claire stared at him, waiting for the punchline. None came. "That sounds like a you problem," she said. "It is," he agreed. "But it became a you problem the moment you slapped me." Her laugh was short and humorless. "You cannot be serious." "I am." "Let me guess," she said. You need a fake girlfriend. A temporary date. Someone to smile next to you at dinners. A wife, Ethan corrected. The word landed heavily between them. Claire stepped back. Absolutely not. I am not asking you to pretend for free, he continued, calm but firm. And I am not asking you to love me. I am offering a contract. Clear terms. Limited time. No emotional expectations. You think that makes this better, she asked. I think it makes it honest. She shook her head. You do not know me. That is precisely why I came to you, he said. You did not recognize me. You did not care who I was. You did not hesitate. Her eyes narrowed. So this is about control. No, Ethan said quietly. This is about survival. Claire turned away, pacing a few steps before stopping under the flickering sign. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear but from anger. Or maybe exhaustion. You want to buy my life for 30 days, she said. I want to borrow your name, he replied. And your presence. Nothing more. And after she asked, after the contract ends, she faced him again. People like you do not end contracts. He met her gaze. People like me lose everything when we break them. The honesty in his voice unsettled her. Claire thought of her landlord. The overdue notices. Her mother's medical bills folded carefully in her bag like secrets she could not escape. She thought of dignity and how easily it was threatened when money ran out. I will not be owned, she said. You will not be, Ethan answered. You will be protected. She laughed again, but this time it sounded tired. You are asking the wrong woman. I am asking the only one who said no to me today, he said. And meant it. Claire looked at him for a long moment. I am not agreeing, she said slowly. But I will listen. Ethan exhaled, relief flickering across his face before he could stop it. That is all I am asking for, he said. As they stood there under the buzzing light, neither of them noticed the way the clock kept moving forward. 30 days had already begun. Claire did not invite him inside. Instead, she walked a few steps down the block and stopped near a closed coffee shop, its chairs stacked behind dark glass. The streetlight above them cast a pale circle just wide enough to hold the conversation she was not sure she should be having. Say what you came to say, she told him. Ethan nodded. Fair. He reached into his coat and pulled out a thin folder. Not a dramatic gesture. No flourish. Just paper. Clean. Precise. I am proposing a contract marriage, he said. 30 days. No extensions. No surprises. Claire did not touch the folder. You are insane, she said. Possibly, he replied. But not careless. He opened the folder and angled it so she could see without taking it from him. First, he said, this is not about love. There will be no expectation of romance. No public affection beyond what appearances require. Appearances for who, she asked. My grandmother. My board. The media? She scoffed. So I am a prop. You would be a partner, he corrected. With boundaries? He continued, steady and controlled. Second, this arrangement is temporary. 30 days from the date of signing, the marriage is dissolved. No penalties. No leverage held over you. And you just walk away, she asked. Yes. People like you do not walk away, Claire said. People like me do not usually need to, Ethan replied. This time I will. She searched his face again. He was not smiling, not persuading. He was explaining as if the facts alone were enough. Third, he said, your independence remains intact. You keep your job, your routines, your privacy. You are not required to move in with me unless you choose to. Claire raised an eyebrow. And if I choose not to, then we live separately and present together only when necessary. She folded her arms tighter. You are very confident I would ever say yes. I am confident you will hear me out, he said. You already are. That irritated her more than she expected. And what do I get, she asked. Ethan did not hesitate. Security. He said the word carefully as if he understood how dangerous it could sound. Your rent will be covered for the duration of the contract. Any outstanding medical expenses for your family will be paid in full. No loans, no strings. At the end of 30 days, you leave with a financial settlement that ensures you are not choosing between dignity and survival ever again. Claire felt her breath catch before she could stop it. She turned away, staring at the darkened coffee shop window, her reflection warped by old fingerprints and city grime. You did your research, she said. I verified what you would need to be protected, he answered. Nothing more. That is still control, she said quietly. Ethan stepped closer, then stopped himself. It is leverage, he said, and I am placing it entirely in your hands. You can say no, and nothing changes for me except that I lose everything. She laughed under her breath. You really expect me to believe that? Yes, he said, because my grandmother does not bluff. Silence settled again. Claire thought of the unopened letters on her kitchen table, the numbers she avoided adding up. The nights she lay awake calculating how many shifts she could work before her body failed her. You are asking me to wear your name, she said, to stand next to you while people judge me. They already will, Ethan said. Whether you say yes or no. She faced him sharply. And what about you? What do you lose? Ethan held her gaze. Control, he said. For the first time? The honesty disarmed her more than any charm could have. She reached for the folder, then flipping through the pages without really reading. Legal language, clear clauses, end dates, exit conditions. It was all there. Too clean, too logical. This is a bad idea, she said. I know, Ethan replied. And you still want me? I need someone who will not forget who she is when she puts on my ring, he said. Someone who would walk away the moment I cross a line. Claire closed the folder. She handed it back to him. I am not agreeing, she said firmly. Not tonight. Not like this. Ethan nodded. I would be disappointed if you did. She hesitated, then added, but I will meet you tomorrow. In public. Coffee. No contracts. He allowed himself a small nod. Tomorrow, he said. As they parted ways under the streetlight, neither of them said what they were both thinking. That every rule they had just discussed was already under threat, and the contract had not even been signed yet. Morning came too quickly. Claire barely slept. She lay awake, listening to the radiator knock inside her apartment, the sound syncing with the questions she could not silence. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the folder in Ethan's hands. Clean pages, clear exits. A promise that felt heavier than any lie. By the time she stepped into the coffee shop the next morning, she had already decided one thing. She would not be intimidated. The place was small and unpretentious, all chipped mugs and scratched wooden tables. The smell of burnt espresso clung to the air like memory. Claire chose a seat near the window and set her bag on the chair beside her, as if marking territory. Ethan arrived exactly on time. No entourage, no assistant, just him. He paused when he saw her, as if waiting for permission to approach. That restraint did not go unnoticed. Coffee, Claire said before he could speak. Sit, then talk. He ordered without argument and joined her, folding his hands on the table, posture careful again. I read the contract, she said. Every word. Ethan nodded. And it is terrifying, she said plainly. Not because of what it asks, because of how easy it would make everything. He did not interrupt. You are offering to solve problems I have been fighting for years, she continued. You say it is protection. But protection always has a cost. It does, Ethan said, which is why I want your consent, fully. She studied him over the rim of her mug. You are not desperate, she said. You are controlled. And this is the first thing you cannot control. His mouth tightened, but he did not deny it. My grandmother will not budge, he said. The board already knows there is a deadline. Rumors are starting. If I choose wrong, I lose everything. And if you choose me, Claire asked, you still lose something. Yes, he said. But I get to choose what? Silence settled between them, again different this time. Less defensive, more dangerous. Her phone buzzed. Claire did not need to look at the screen to know who it was. Her landlord had been calling since dawn. She flipped the phone face down without answering. You do not have to explain, Ethan said quietly. That makes it worse, she replied. Because it means you already know. She took a breath, steadying herself. If I say yes, she said, it is not because I want your money. It is because I am tired of choosing which bill gets paid and which one waits. You will never have to explain that to me, Ethan said. And if I say yes, she continued, there will be rules. I would expect nothing less. No emotional manipulation, she said. No pretending you get to decide who I am. No public humiliation disguised as tradition. Ethan nodded. Agreed. And the moment this arrangement ends, she added, you do not get to claim you saved me. His gaze held steady. I would never. Claire exhaled slowly. She reached into her bag and pulled out the folded notice she had been carrying for days. Rent overdue. Final warning. She placed it on the table between them. This is the only reason I am still listening, she said. Ethan did not touch the paper. Then let me remove the reason, he said. She laughed softly, a sound edged with disbelief. You really think 30 days with you will not change me? I think it will, he said. But not in the ways you are afraid of. She stared at him, at the man who had never been told no until yesterday, now waiting as if the entire future rested on a chip table in a coffee shop. Fine, Claire said at last. I will do it. Ethan did not move, did not smile. Under one condition, she added. Name it. This marriage stays fake, she said, no matter how convincing it looks. Ethan swallowed once. Understood. She reached across the table and extended her hand. 30 days, she said. No more. He took her hand, his grip firm but restrained. 30 days, he agreed. Neither of them noticed the barista watching from behind the counter, curiosity written plainly on her face. Nor did they acknowledge the quiet truth settling between them. They had just signed nothing. And yet both of their lives had already begun to change. The paperwork was signed 2 days later. Not in a courthouse, not in front of cameras. Just a quiet conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows and a city that did not care what promises were being made inside. Claire read every page again before signing. She did not rush. She did not look at Ethan while she did it. When she finally set the pen down, the sound felt louder than it should have. 30 days, she said, more to herself than to him. Ethan nodded. 30 days. The ring came next. It was simple. No oversized stone. No dramatic sparkle. Just a clean band that felt heavier than it looked when Claire slipped it onto her finger. She stared at it for a moment, then closed her hand as if testing whether it would disappear. It did not. The first week passed in a blur of adjustments. They did not move in together, but the world assumed they had. Photos appeared online within hours of the announcement. Headlines speculated. Comment sections exploded. Claire stopped reading after the third article that questioned her motives. Ethan handled the press with practiced calm. Claire watched him from a distance during their first public appearance together, noting how his posture shifted slightly when she stood beside him. He slowed his steps to match hers. He angled his body without thinking, placing himself between her and the crowd. It annoyed her. It comforted her. They learned each other in fragments. Ethan learned that Claire drank her coffee black and forgot to eat when she was anxious. That she hated elevators but never said why. That she always arrived early because being late made her feel invisible. Claire learned that Ethan woke before sunrise every day, even when he did not need to. That he folded his sleeves precisely twice. That silence did not make him uncomfortable, only exposed. The rules began to blur in small, quiet ways. He brought her a coat during a cold outdoor event without being asked. She fixed his tie before a meeting and immediately stepped back as if crossing an invisible line. Neither of them commented on it. At night, when Claire returned to her apartment, she found her rent notice gone. Not paid. Removed. Replaced by a simple confirmation email. No message. No reminder. She told herself not to be grateful. The first dinner at his grandmother's estate was scheduled for the end of the second week. Claire spent the entire drive rehearsing what she would say, what she would not say, how she would stand when she would smile. Ethan noticed the tension in her shoulders as they passed through the iron gates. You do not have to impress her, he said. Claire looked at him. That is easy for you to say. She will test you, he admitted. But not the way you expect. The house was old money, quiet. Every surface polished by time rather than effort. Eleanor Blackwood waited in the sitting room posture, straight eyes sharp. She did not rise when they entered. So Eleanor said, her gaze settling on Claire. You are the woman my grandson chose. Claire met her eyes without flinching. Yes, ma'am. Ethan held his breath. Eleanor studied her hands, the ring the way Claire stood without shrinking. Sit, Eleanor said. Dinner was controlled tension. Questions wrapped in compliments, compliments edged with judgment. Claire answered simply, never defensive, never eager to please. At one point, Eleanor turned to Ethan. She is not what I expected. Neither was the deadline, he replied. Something unreadable passed through Eleanor's eyes. Later, as they walked back toward the car, Claire let out a breath she had been holding for hours. She hates me, she said. Ethan shook his head. No. She respects you. Claire frowned. How can you tell? Because she did not dismiss you. On the drive home, the silence between them felt different again. Less cautious, less distant. When they stopped at a red light, Ethan glanced at Claire's reflection in the window. You did not have to do that, he said. Yes, she replied quietly. I did. The light changed. And for the first time since the contract began, neither of them remembered exactly where the rules ended and something else began. The gala was not optional. Claire learned that the moment Ethan's assistant handed her the invitation with a careful smile and no room for discussion. Black tie. Press confirmed. Board members present. Eleanor Blackwood seated at the center table. This is a test, Claire said quietly as the car pulled up to the venue. Yes, Ethan replied, but not only for you. The ballroom glowed with restrained luxury. Crystal glasses caught the light. Conversations hummed with money and influence. Claire felt every glance before she saw it, the subtle pause when people recognized her face from headlines and whispers. That is her. The waitress. The contract wife. She straightened her shoulders and walked beside Ethan without touching him. Inside, Eleanor watched them approach, her expression unreadable. Claire, Eleanor said, extending her hand. You look appropriate. It was not a compliment. Claire took the hand anyway. Thank you, Mrs. Blackwood, she replied evenly. The evening unfolded like a chess match. Board members circled. Investors smiled too widely. One woman leaned close enough for her perfume to overwhelm. So tell us, the woman said, eyes sharp, what exactly do you do? Claire did not look at Ethan. I work, she said, and I do it well. A murmur followed. Some amused. Some offended. Later during dinner, Eleanor raised her glass. To family, she said. And to choices made under pressure. Eyes flicked to Claire. The room waited. Claire felt the moment tighten, the unspoken invitation to defend herself, to prove worth, to beg acceptance. She did none of it. I believe pressure reveals character, Claire said calmly. And I believe people are more than the circumstances that introduce them. Silence followed. Heavy. Unforgiving. Ethan watched his grandmother closely. Eleanor did not smile, but she nodded once. The real blow came after dessert. As the crowd shifted toward the terrace, a man stepped forward. A shareholder, known, respected, dangerous. Ethan, he said loudly enough for others to hear. A word about your arrangement. Claire felt the word hit her like a shove. Arrangement, Ethan asked coolly. Yes, the man continued. It is impressive how quickly you found a solution. Some might even call it strategic. Laughter rippled. And some, the man added, eyes on Claire, might wonder how temporary it is. Claire's chest tightened. This was it. The moment she had prepared for and hoped would never come. She could step back. Let Ethan handle it. Let him protect the illusion. Instead, she stepped forward. This is not temporary, Claire said. The lie tasted sharp. This is a marriage, she continued. And if anyone here believes I am a placeholder, they are welcome to leave that assumption at the door. The man raised an eyebrow. Confident words. Yes, Claire replied. Because I do not stay where I am, not wanted. Ethan turned to her startled. Claire did not look back. Eleanor watched everything. The man laughed it off, retreating with a shrug, but the damage lingered. Whispers followed Claire as she moved through the room, some impressed, others sharpened by suspicion. On the terrace, the night air felt thin. That was not part of the plan, Ethan said quietly. No, Claire answered. But neither was being humiliated. He nodded once. You should not have had to do that. I know, she said, but I needed to. They stood side by side, not touching yet closer than they had ever been. Behind them, Eleanor approached. You spoke well, Eleanor said to Claire. Thank you, Claire replied. You defended your place, Eleanor continued. Even knowing it might cost you. Claire met her gaze. I would rather lose a place than lose myself. Eleanor studied her for a long moment. Interesting, she said finally. When Eleanor walked away, Ethan exhaled. She believes you, he said. Claire shook her head. No. She believes I am not weak. That may be enough. As the gala wound down, Claire felt the weight of exhaustion settle deep in her bones. The performance was holding, but the cracks were spreading. And somewhere in the room, someone was watching too closely. Someone who knew that the marriage had started as a contract, and who was waiting for the right moment to tear it apart. The fallout came faster than Claire expected. 2 mornings after the gala, her phone would not stop vibrating. She ignored it at first, assuming it was another headline, another opinion she did not ask for. But when the messages kept stacking up, when her coworker sent a single text that read, "You need to see this," she finally opened her browser. The article was already trending. Inside Blackwood's marriage, sources claim, union is contractual. Claire felt the blood drain from her face. She scrolled. Screenshots, blurred documents, highlighted clauses. 30 days. Exit terms. Financial settlement. Everything Ethan had promised would remain private, dragged into the light and twisted into spectacle. Her name sat there in bold letters reduced to a roll. Contract wife. She closed the browser, hands shaking. Across the city, Ethan was already in damage control. His office buzzed with voices, legal counsel talking over each other, assistants moving too quickly as if speed alone could fix what had broken. The board demanded statements. The press demanded answers. His grandmother demanded silence. Deny everything, one advisor said. Frame it as speculation, another added. Ethan stood at the window listening, but not responding. All he could see was Claire's face when she found out. He reached for his phone. It went straight to voicemail. Claire did not answer because she could not trust her voice. She left work early, walked the long way home, and let the city blur around her. Every step felt heavier than the last. Not because she was surprised, because some part of her had known. That night, she packed. Not everything, just the essentials. Clothes, documents, the ring. She set it on the kitchen table and stared at it for a long time. When the knock came, she did not jump. She had been expecting it. Ethan stood in the doorway, coat half-buttoned, eyes tight with urgency. "Say something," he said. Claire stepped aside to let him in, then closed the door behind him. "How long did you know this could happen?" she asked. Ethan hesitated. "I knew it was a risk." Her laugh was sharp. "That is not an answer." "I did not think it would happen this way," he said. "But you thought it could," she replied. "And you let me walk into it anyway." He moved closer. "I was going to tell you. Today." "After it broke?" she asked. He stopped. "That was not protection," she said quietly. "That was control. You decided when I deserved the truth." Ethan shook his head. "That was never my intention." "But it was the result," Claire said. "An intention does not clean up the mess." She reached into her bag and pulled out the ring. "This was never real," she said, placing it on the table between them. "Not to you. It was strategy." "That is not true," Ethan said too quickly. Claire looked up at him. "Then why did I have to find out like this?" Silence pressed down on the room. "I trusted you," she continued. "Not because of the contract. Because you said you would not cross that line." "I did not leak it," Ethan said. "I know," Claire replied. "And that almost makes it worse." He took a step toward her. "Do not do this. Do not do what she asked. Leave before you decide. This was never my choice to begin with." She picked up her bag. "This ends now," she said. "Not because the contract says so. Because I say so." Ethan felt something crack. "You are walking away from everything," he said. "No," Claire replied. "I am walking away from being managed." She opened the door. "Claire," he said, voice low. "If you leave, my grandmother will assume she was right." She paused, then turned back. "This is not about your grandmother," she said. "And if you still think it is, then you never really saw me." She left without another word. Ethan stood alone in the apartment, staring at the ring on the table, at the silence she left behind. Outside, the city kept moving. Inside, for the first time in his life, Ethan Blackwood realized he had finally lost control of the one thing that mattered, and no contract in the world could bring it back. The board meeting was scheduled for 9 o'clock sharp. By 8:58, the room was full. Executives sat stiffly along the polished table. Legal counsel lined one wall. Phones buzzed with speculation that had already leaked before anyone spoke a word. At the head of the table, Eleanor Blackwood sat perfectly still, hands folded, eyes fixed on the empty chair beside her. Ethan arrived alone. No ring, no wife, no prepared statement. When he took his seat, the room fell silent. "We are here to address the situation surrounding Mr. Blackwood's marriage," one board member began. "Given the recent revelations, we require clarity." Immediately, Ethan did not look at the papers in front of him. "I will give you clarity," he said. "But not the kind you are expecting." He stood. "This marriage began as a contract," he continued evenly. That is true. It was designed to satisfy a deadline and preserve control. Murmurs rippled through the room. And it failed, Ethan said, because contracts do not protect people. Choices do. Eleanor's gaze sharpened. I crossed a line, he went on. Not because the contract existed, but because I treated it like leverage instead of responsibility. And the woman I married refused to stay once she realized that. Someone scoffed. Another shook their head. So what are you saying? A board member demanded. That you are forfeiting everything over a mistake. Ethan met his eyes. Yes, he said. If that is what it costs. Effective immediately. I will step down if necessary. Eleanor rose slowly from her chair. Sit, she said to the board. They obeyed without question. She turned to her grandson. You finally understand the rule, she said. Ethan swallowed. That control is not leadership. Eleanor studied him for a long moment. Correct, she said. Leadership is choosing who matters when power is no longer guaranteed. She turned back to the board. The contract is void. The marriage as it existed is over. A pause. And my grandson remains, Eleanor added, because for the first time he chose without hiding behind strategy. The meeting ended in stunned silence. Across town, Claire was halfway through her shift when her phone buzzed again. She almost ignored it. Almost. The notification was short. Live press conference. Ethan Blackwood speaking now. She stepped into the alley behind the restaurant, hands cold despite the afternoon sun. Ethan stood at the podium without notes. I do not have a wife today, he said into the cameras, because I do not deserve one until I can stand without conditions. Questions flew. Accusations. Speculation. He raised a hand. I am not here to defend myself, Ethan said. I am here to make one thing clear. The woman involved in this story was never a transaction. She was the standard I failed to meet. Claire's breath caught. And if she never returns, Ethan continued, voice steady but raw, then this is the cost of learning too late. The feed ended. Claire stayed where she was long after the screen went dark. That evening, there was a knock at her door. She did not expect him. Ethan stood in the hallway, no suit, no ring, no urgency left to hide behind. I am not here to ask you back, he said before she could speak. I am here to tell you that I ended it. All of it. The contract, the protection, the leverage. Claire studied him carefully. And what do you want now? She asked. Ethan took a breath. Permission. To choose you without conditions. Or to walk away, if you say no. Silence stretched between them, softer than before. Claire stepped aside. Inside the apartment felt smaller than it used to. Or maybe she had grown. You hurt me, she said. I know, Ethan replied. And I will not justify it. She reached into a drawer and pulled out the ring, setting it on the table. This meant nothing, she said. Yes, Ethan answered. That is why I did not bring it back. He reached into his pocket and placed something else beside it. No contract, no terms. Just a simple piece of paper with a single sentence written in his hand. No deadlines, no agreements. Just a question. Claire read it once. Then again. She looked up at him. You are really risking everything, she said. I already did, Ethan replied. I am just being honest about it now. She picked up the paper, folded it slowly, and met his eyes. This time, she said, you do not get to choose alone. Ethan nodded. I would never ask you to.